All right, welcome back. Good evening, everyone, to a little chess game review. This will be part of my subscriber submitted games. I have a young Marine who's learning the game and has asked me to kind of go through some of the games, especially ones he's been losing. And so we're gonna kick it right off. This will be part of my series, but this does inspire me to do a couple things, and we'll talk about that at the end. But this game was just like back and forth, a little bit of a roller coaster. There's winning chances on both sides, and I thought it was really interesting. And there's some things that I do have to give you kudos, my young subscriber, because you made some moves that kind of show the improvement in your game, even this far in. Okay, so we'll just kick it off. E4, E5. Knight to f3, knight to c6, kind of classic chess opening. And then white goes right for d4. And this is not a move I've faced like a ton of times. You'll usually find this with more aggressive players. Black plays d5 here, and I don't even know about this move, man. I'm honest with you. We'll come back to it, okay? I want to go with what I would play here is e takes d4. And here white captures the pawn, and this move it looks really like dangerous. Like we're gonna have double pawns and stuff like that. There's two things I'll play here. It's either bishop b7 or sometimes if I'm feeling up to it, bishop b4. Bishop b4 check comes with a kind of the idea is to well, most people will respond with c3 here. And I would expect this type of move, especially from the level of players that you're playing. And it kind of restricts the knight a little bit. So after this move, now you can go back to bishop b7, or you can play bishop b7 back here. Either way, the bishop's going to end up on e7. So if this capture happens, and after pawn retakes, if this queen trade happens, you can capture with the bishop, and you don't have to lose the right to castle. You're going to develop this knight somewhere and castle and get safe, right? Okay, d5 though. I'm like, I guess it's not necessarily like a bad move or anything. I just don't know. I just don't know what you were thinking, honestly. Anyway, bishop g5, horrible move, I think, from white. And black responds knight f6, not the best move. And here I'm gonna hit you with a little bit of hypocrisy because I would play f6 here, and I know. I just told you that move was like, it's going to weaken the king, it's going to block your knight, but we have a little bit of an advantage here, right? This move makes sense for us because we're going to get some compensation for this move. Let's just think for a moment, like if white decides to save the bishop, then we've got d takes e4. We're up a pawn. White, I mean, this move is actually like probably this move actually makes sense. Like you're going to lose the knight. Because after this, you've got, this is a really interesting line here, actually. Does this work? Takes. I don't think it matters much. I don't think the players of your level would see a move like that. I think they'd be prompted to kind of retreat. So after this move, I mean, queen takes and, oops. Queen takes pawn. White's up 2 points, 2 pawns. And, like that's compensation for removing one of our knight's squares. So that's why I would suggest that. Knight f6 moves the knight right. It just walks him right into a pin. And so it doesn't feel right to me. White immediately takes advantage of that. And here, this is the first time in the game. I mean, this situation maybe prompts it, but a nice counterattack move, right? And it's really interesting to me that these now are kind of like passed pawns and they're like behind each other. It's really crazy. But anyway, you're counterattacking instead of freaking out about the knight, which is cool. And we're gonna see this a little bit later again. Again, this position kind of called for this move, maybe. Anyway, knight d4 is what white ends up playing. And what a complete and total blunder. Blunders the piece completely. Knight takes d4 is what black plays here, but queen takes d4 is what I would suggest in this situation because I want to trade the queens here. Because look, you're up a whole piece. Get the queens off the board. Start. I mean, a battle of attrition is now nothing but in your favor since you're up so much material. And let's say that, if even beginners would know that, being down material is not a time to trade, maybe the trade wouldn't happen. But if it does, I think maybe, I mean, even here, well, I mean, what's the best move here? Right? Because if the pawn takes, we're gonna have this fork and win a rook, So going back to this position, the best move for white is to take the knight. But then we've got this queen capture. Knight's gonna kind of pop out here, and maybe queen. Yeah, we can attack the bishop, and everything's fine. And we come out, or black comes out up a pawn, and even after this retreat, you can decide to take this if you want. I think it's safe. Queen takes, and so we come out of it still up 2 pawns. This might not be the move you want to make. I don't know. Anyway, we're going too far ahead. That's just the move that I would suggest here. Knight takes doesn't like force the issues. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, and which is the first time I've mentioned more forcing moves, and that's going to be kind of the theme. All right, forcing moves. What are forcing moves? And we're going to get into that in a second. Here, white develops the knight, which is kind of interesting. I think that black plays h6, which questions the bishop. The player. I mean, white shouldn't want to trade this, but does, which actually works in your favor. Because after all, these trades happen. You've got this awesome center. The knight's sitting there in the center. And here's the second moment where I was kind of, the knight's attacked, and you come out with a developing move that's a counterattack at the same time. Hey, that's not a bad move, I got to tell you. And it's not a move I would expect from a beginner at the level of 1123, to be honest with you. So, I mean, good move. We got to get developed. Not the move I would have chose, though. If we're going to look at counterattacking moves, there are more forcing ones, namely queen h4 attacks the same piece you're going to attack with the bishop, but if this capture happens, we get, again, a more forcing recapture, which wins us a pawn in the end. All right, let's say, that white decides to block with the bishop here, which would be a terrible move, right? Let's say that white blocks with the queen here. Now you've got some options here. It's like, man, we can develop the bishop here with check. Things are really starting to look really bad for white, right? So here, now, I'll give you a second. In this game, again, I think you're not only black, but white as well, playing a little bit too materialistically. I want you to look at this position and see if you can find a move that is just going to be, if king d1 is played, which is not the best move for white. If this move was made, I mean, you've got all kinds of just wonderful stuff, right? So, take a look at those types of situations. All right, that's not what happens here. But here we are. Okay, but like I said before, it's really interesting that you're not ignoring development. You're coming out with a counterattack, and that's kudos to you, man. Because after these trades, oops, my goodness, wrong button. Trade. Okay. Now we're at this position, and here, the problem I have with queen e7 is it blocks in the dark squared bishop, okay? I don't know why I feel like you might be against trading queens, and that's fine. That's fine. Maybe you want to have queens on the board. However, let's look for a forcing move that can help us develop the bishop before we play queen e7 and block it in. Do you have a forcing move? Forcing moves, remember, are mate threats, checks, and threats of tactics. Okay, if you can think those three things. Do you have a mate threat? No. Is there a check on the board? Absolutely. Let's develop the bishop. Now, I mean, white has to move the king, loses the right to castle. I mean, everything is great. Now, if you want to stick with your plan of queen e7, I don't have a problem with that. I think, again, I might play more aggressively here, but if you're after this pawn, you're after that pawn. All right, so, and this is just a better position. I mean, you even have, you can develop rooks now with threats, and it's just a better idea. All right, so queen e7 is played, and I get it. You're after, you're after this pawn, the pawn on e5. I understand. Queen d4 is played. Here, I mean, there's nothing wrong with bishop c6. I just, again, the theme of this is forcing moves, and understand you're up 2 pawns in this position. It's time, if you can find a way being up 2 pawns is a lot. It's damn near a piece, right? So is there a forcing move that could trade off the queens maybe? Absolutely. Queen b4 forces the queen trade, and now again, I mean, I guess whatever move happens here, now white can't castle, and we can. I mean, this is just going to be devastating. It's going to be a horrible game, the remainder of the game anyway, for white. So look for those forcing moves. Get the queens off the board when you're up material, because as you and I both know, my young subscriber, the queen's the one that gets you in the end, right? So, all right, where were we? Okay, bishop retreats. White plays bishop c4. Here, queen b4 check, and after the king moves, I thought I was going to see. I thought this move came with more tactics than it did, because you follow this up with bishop c5, and that's fine. It's a great move. In fact, you know what? I won't even stray off. I think I saw a move here that I thought would be really interesting to look at, which was either bishop here or maybe b5. And I thought this move would be cool because this bishop's pinned, and because the queen's undefended. And I thought that was kind of what you were looking at. But just an interesting thing to look at. Maybe analyze that with an engine later. I'm not going to waste your time, because what you played here was just fine as well. Bishop c5. Thanks for getting developed with a threat. All right. After, where were we? Yep, we're back to the main line. Right? Yeah. Back to the main line here. Bishop. Yeah. Queen. Was there another move I was thinking about here? I don't remember. Anyway, let's just continue. If it comes back, must not have been that important. All right. Queen g4, and here, yeah, hey, grab that thing with check. And, man, this is the moment, right? It's like, man, white is just done. And I know it's hard to find, but, I mean, if there's like a chess puzzle you want, this is a mate in 5. At most, I think, mate in 5. And it all starts with a forcing move. But first I want to illustrate what I'm talking about. The king is just completely trapped here, right? The queen's got all these squares. Bishops are covering these squares. This diagonal's covered. All these, the king is just screwed. And even if you didn't see that, if you focused on finding forcing moves, this is it, right? Rook to d8, check. And since the king has nowhere to go, there's only one option for white, and that's to block this check. So what can block it? You got bishop here, you got the queen. I think these are all legal moves. I mean, what do you play? What do you play? I think most people would block with the bishop, but it doesn't do anything, because now it's like a mate. And I know this looks juicy, but that's not the mate. Queen here, king, and rook d3 is mate. So I mean, this is the moment, right, where white is just, the game is over, and there's this mate threat. which, I mean, I think, again, if you were focused on the forcing moves, and I understand you were probably trying to preserve your right to castle kind of thing, like you don't want to castle this side because this side's destroyed. Maybe you're trying to do that, but man, if only you'd seen this move, you'd have this game in the bag. All right, look for forcing moves. Instead, we decide to play materialistically, and this spells basically the end of the game for black because we are not castled. The king's in the center, and now the queen and king are lined up. These are patterns you really have to look out for, especially with rooks on the board. And if bishops are on the board, look for patterns that are diagonals, right? Because that's what happens, unfortunately. Boom. Like, black just is going to lose a queen. And at this point, I mean, it's bad enough that we're going to lose a queen, but black plays bishop e4 check here, and I don't understand why we want to throw a bishop away as well as the rook, or the queen. But here's the thing. It's like, lose the queen. Find the best move on the board. Don't stop, like, panic type situation sets up here, or maybe you're just giving up, but let me present something for you here. Rook d8 check. And there are a couple options. I think most, especially the players you're playing, would probably play the one move the king can make here. But there's a cool sacrifice here. And that's rook at d2. King takes bishop b4 check. And I don't know, let's say the king moves here. And now, hey, no problem, right? And I think that's, I mean, I know that's probably a little bit more advanced or whatever, but I think you might have found it if you were focused on forcing moves rather than this. This is probably the worst move you could possibly make because now you lose a light squared bishop and now rook d8 check. I mean, so after the king moves, I mean, this is just kind of spells the end of the game because, I mean, white doesn't see it, but white has, again, I'm just going to bring this up as a last kind of note. I know we're playing now from white's perspective, but white is going materialistically. White plays queen g7, and you're attacking the rook, and, you know, I mean, we get to win a pawn. I get it. But forcing move. This is not only a check, but also a threat of a mate. And it actually is a mate in one. King here, mate in one. King here, what? There's a couple moves. That's mate in two, right? And king here, mate in one. It's the end of the game. Instead, black chooses to, well, white chooses to play kind of materialistically, and I mean, things just are going downhill from here. I don't think we need to endure the pain any longer. But like I said, it was moments. Well, the moment that we get to here, I won't explain all these checks that happen here, is this move. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh! This is, I mean, white just did the same thing that cost you your queen. And king d7? What about rook e7? And at first glance, I thought, oh, look, you get the queen back. And maybe white sees this sacrifice. It doesn't actually win the queen because white does have this move, and then you got to double attack this, and queen takes off. You got this check, and it's going to draw out the game, but still, it's such a disadvantage that you're at, queen and rook versus two rooks and a bishop. I mean, it's possible this game continues on and could turn out in your favor, but you know, played correctly by white, it should spell the end for black. So again, like I said, it was like almost a roller coaster. Black had chances here, and we're up material, or I mean, this game could have been over like 10 moves ago, and it's so unfortunate that didn't happen. And that's why I want to focus on forcing moves. My next video, in fact, for my Chess with Aspen series, I think we'll cover what are forcing moves, how to find them. You know, again, it's going to be mate threats, checks, and threats of tactics. Tactics being like forks and pins and skewers kind of stuff, right? Especially forks and skewers. So that expect that to come out in a little while. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this run through. If you, it was this game was like, up and down roller coaster, and it was so unfortunate to watch Black kind of blunder away the game when it was in the bag. But I hope you get something from this run through there, Mr. Candrews. And again, look for those forcing moves. So, hey, if you like the video, hit that like button. Subscribe. Hey, subscribers that send me games, I'll be happy to go through them and talk about them. I don't like chess engines so much because I don't know what the hell they're thinking. I don't say I don't use them, but if you want to do an engine check for yourself, I think, especially for beginners, some of the engine moves just don't make sense. I remember having those confusing moments with like, why did the engine play that kind of thing? And those are really hard moves to find. So sometimes it's better just to talk through these games like this. So, hey, if you're into that, hit that subscribe, like, comment if you had any questions about the game. And we'll leave it here, ladies and gents. And I hope you guys all have a fantastic day. And you guys take care out there. Until next time, see you later.